My son died 19 years ago. 19 years of visiting his grave. 19 years of silence. Then at 1:58 in the morning, silence ended. My phone lit up in the darkness. His name, his contact photo, smiling at me from the screen. I answered with shaking hands. "Dad," he said. "Help me. I don't remember who I am." But that phone was buried with him 19 years ago. To this day, I don't know if what happened was real or if grief finally broke my mind. When I went to the address he gave me, I was shocked by what I found inside. Welcome and thank you for being here. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to support the channel, and share in the comments where you're watching from today. Please note some details in this story have been fictionalized to protect privacy and enhance the narrative, but the lesson and emotions are completely true. Let me be clear about something. I'm not a man who believes in ghosts. I don't think the dead come back. But on August 7th, 2024, at exactly 1:58 in the morning, my phone rang. And the name on the screen said, Matthew Harper. My son, my dead son. I was asleep when it happened. The sound jolted me awake, that sharp, cutting ring that pierces through dreams. I grabbed the phone off my nightstand, without thinking, muscle memory from too many middle-of-the-night emergencies over the years. But those calls had stopped 18 years ago. Nobody calls me at 2 in the morning anymore. Nobody has a reason to. The screen glowed in the darkness of my bedroom. And there it was. Matthew Harper. His contact photo stared back at me, a picture from his 18th birthday, grinning at the camera with that lopsided smile he got from his mother. Alive. Happy. Unaware he had less than a year left, my hands started shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. This couldn't be real. The number had been disconnected since March 2007. I'd tried calling it hundreds of times over the years, usually late at night when the grief got too heavy. Every time the same recorded message, "The number you have dialed is no longer in service." But now it was calling me. The phone kept ringing. 4 rings. 5. My thumb hovered over the answer button. Part of me wanted to throw the phone across the room. Part of me wanted to answer more desperately than I'd ever wanted anything in my life. On the 6th ring, something inside me broke open. I pressed the button, lifted the phone to my ear. For 3 seconds, silence. Just dead air and the sound of my own breathing, harsh and rapid in the quiet room. Then I heard it, breathing on the other end. Slow, steady, human. Someone was there. "Hello." My voice came out as a whisper. I cleared my throat, tried again. "Hello, Dad." One word. Quiet, confused, scared. My son's voice. I know my son's voice. I heard it every day for 19 years. I heard it in my dreams for 18 years after that. This wasn't a recording. This wasn't a memory playing tricks on me. This was real. This was him. Actually him. Speaking to me through the phone. My vision blurred. Tears ran down my face before I even realized I was crying. I tried to speak, but nothing came out. My throat had closed up completely. "Oh, Dad, are you there?" he said again. His voice cracked. He sounded desperate, lost. I forced air into my lungs, forced words past my lips. "Matthew." It barely came out. A broken whisper, silence on the other end. Long, terrible silence. Then, "Yeah, it's me." A pause. Where am I? The question didn't make sense. Where was he? What kind of question was that? "What do you mean?" I asked. My whole body was shaking now. "Where are you calling from?" More silence. I could hear him breathing faster, panicked breathing. "I don't know," he said. "I don't know where I am. Nothing makes sense. Dad, something's wrong. Everything feels wrong." I stood up from my bed, turned on the lamp. I needed to think clearly, but my brain wasn't working. My son was dead. I buried him. I watched them lower his coffin into the ground. This couldn't be happening. Matthew, what's going on? I asked. Where have you been? What do you say to someone who's been dead for 18 years? How do you even begin that conversation? He made a sound like a sob. I don't know. I remember the accident. I remember the truck hitting me. I remember dying. His voice broke. I felt it, Dad. I died, but then I woke up and everything was different. I look different. I feel different. I'm in some place I don't recognize, and people walk right past me like I'm not even here. My legs gave out. I sat down hard on the edge of my bed. My son remembered dying. He knew he died, but he was talking to me. How was he talking to me? Are you hurt? I asked. Stupid question. He's dead, but he's calling me. Nothing made sense. No, he said. I'm not hurt, but I'm scared. I don't understand what's happening. Can you come get me? Please. His voice broke on the word please. He sounded like a little boy again, lost and afraid and needing his father. Tell me where you are, I said. My own voice was shaking. Give me an address. I'll come right now. I don't know the address, he said. I'm in a building. It's dark. There are apartments. I'll try to find something with an address on it. I heard movement through the phone, footsteps, a door opening. Then the line went dead. Just like that. Gone. I pulled the phone away from my ear and stared at it. The call timer showed 8 minutes and 17 seconds. I immediately called back. The recording played, "The number you have dialed is no longer in service." I tried again. Same message. I tried 15 more times. Same message every time. My dead son had just called me asking for help. And then he vanished. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I sat on my bed staring at my phone until the sun came up. I kept replaying the conversation in my head. His voice. The way he said, "Dad." The fear in his tone. The confusion. It wasn't a recording. Recordings don't hesitate. Recordings don't ask questions. Recordings don't sound lost. This was a real conversation. With a real person. Who knew things only my son would know. But my son was dead. I needed to go back. Back to the beginning. Back to the night that destroyed everything. October 15th, 2006. That's the night I'm talking about. The night my son died. Or the night I thought he died. I don't know anymore. I don't know anything anymore. It was a Friday. Cold for mid-October, one of those early autumn nights in Oregon where you can see your breath. Matthew had been working the closing shift at a restaurant in Salem. He was 19, saving money for college. He wanted to study engineering. He was good with his hands, good at figuring out how things worked. Victoria and I were home watching the 10 o'clock news when the phone rang. It was 11:28. I remember the exact time because I looked at the clock when I answered. Some part of me already knew. Parents always know. Mr. Harper, a male voice, official, careful. This is Officer Daniel Harris with Salem Police Department. There's been an accident, Commercial Street and Center Street. Your son's vehicle. You need to come to Salem Hospital immediately. The world tilted. Victoria looked at me and knew. She just knew from my face. I don't remember the drive. I remember getting in the car. I remember arriving at the hospital. Everything in between is blank. Victoria said later that I drove 90 miles per hour the whole way, 40 minutes from Portland to Salem in less than half an hour. They took us to a private room, not the emergency waiting area. A small, quiet room with soft chairs and a box of tissues on the table. That's how I knew for certain. They only use those rooms for bad news. A doctor came in. Young guy, maybe 30. He looked exhausted. "Mr. and Mrs. Harper," he said. "I'm Dr. Richardson. I'm very sorry. Your son was involved in a severe collision. A truck ran a red light and struck his vehicle on the driver's side. The impact was..." He paused, chose his words carefully. "The impact was catastrophic. He didn't suffer. It was instant," Victoria screamed. Not a loud scream, a sound that came from somewhere deep inside her. A sound I'd never heard a human make before. Her sister Linda had to hold her up. "Can we see him?" I asked. My voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. They let me see him. Victoria couldn't. She was sedated by that point. So I went alone. The morgue was in the basement. Cold. Clinical. Fluorescent lights that made everything look wrong. They pulled back a sheet, and there he was, my son. His face was peaceful, untouched by whatever had destroyed the rest of him, hidden beneath the sheet. He could have been sleeping. For a moment I let myself believe that he was just sleeping, that he'd wake up if I shook his shoulder. I reached out and touched his hand. It was cold. Not cool, not room temperature. Cold. The kind of cold that means gone. That means never coming back. I stood there for 2 hours, waiting for his chest to move, waiting for his eyes to open, waiting for someone to tell me this was all a horrible mistake. No one did. Victoria arrived later when the sedatives wore off enough for her to stand. She took one look at him, and that sound came out of her again. That inhuman sound of a mother losing her child. Security had to come. They had to take her out of the room. I signed papers. I made arrangements. I picked out a coffin. I chose a plot. I did everything a father has to do when his son dies. I moved through it like a ghost. Like I was the one who had died. We buried him 6 days later at Hillcrest Cemetery under an oak tree. Victoria arrived and screamed. The sound that would haunt me for 18 years. But that was the past. Now, 18 years later, my dead son had just called me, and I had absolutely no idea what to do. We buried him 6 days later under an oak tree at Hillcrest Cemetery. I thought that was the end. I was wrong. It was only the beginning of 18 years in hell. The funeral was on October 22nd, a Sunday. 27 people showed up. Not a big crowd. Matthew was only 19. Most of his friends were kids themselves, uncertain how to act around death, how to comfort grieving parents. They shuffled their feet on the grass, mumbled condolences they'd probably practiced on the drive over. Within a year, most of them stopped calling. Within 2, none of them mentioned his name anymore. That's how death works in America. People move on, they have to. Life keeps going whether you're ready or not. I wasn't ready. The cemetery worker, an older guy with weathered hands and kind eyes, waited patiently while I stood at the grave long after everyone else had left. "Take your time," he said quietly. "I'll be over by the truck when you're ready." I never was ready, but eventually the sun set. Eventually, I had to leave. That was the last time I left willingly. For the next 18 years, I came back every single Sunday. 9 o'clock in the morning, rain or shine, snow or heat. Didn't matter. I'd park in the same spot, walk the same path through Section D, stand under that oak tree, and talk to a piece of granite with my son's name carved into it. Matthew Harper, April 12, 1987, October 15, 2006, forever in our hearts. I told him about my week, about stupid things, the weather, what I ate for dinner, repairs I was making on the house. Sometimes I told him bigger things, about how his mother was doing, about how much I missed him, about how I didn't know how to keep living in a world where he didn't exist. Victoria came with me for the first 6 months. Then she stopped, said it hurt too much, Said she needed to move forward. I didn't understand what that meant. How do you move forward from losing a child? She tried to explain it once, standing in our kitchen 3 years after the funeral. Stanley, he's gone. He's not coming back. We have to accept that and find a way to live. I am living, I said. No, she said, and her voice broke. You're existing. You're haunting your own life. And I can't watch it anymore. We divorced in 2009. 3 years after Matthew died, our marriage did too. Grief kills more than just the person who dies. It kills relationships. It kills futures. It kills the people left behind slowly one day at a time. Victoria remarried in 2011. A good man named Richard. He owned a hardware store in Portland. He was patient with her. Kind. Everything she needed. They had a daughter in 2012. Emma. Victoria sent me a photo. A tiny baby with dark hair and Victoria's eyes. A second chance. A new beginning. I was happy for her. I really was. But part of me, the bitter, broken part, couldn't help thinking, he gets to have a family. He gets to move forward. And I'm still stuck at that grave under the oak tree. April 20th, 2018. The call came at 6 in the morning. Victoria was dead. Car accident on I-5 just outside Salem. A semi-truck crossed the center line. Head-on collision. She died instantly, just like Matthew. Lightning striking twice in the same family. Same type of accident. Same outcome. I went to her funeral. Stood in the back. Watched Richard cry over her coffin while little Emma, 6 years old, held his hand and asked why Mommy wouldn't wake up. I wanted to tell her because the universe is cruel. Because sometimes bad things happen to good people for no reason at all. Because your mother tried so hard to build a new life, and it got taken away anyway. But I didn't say anything. I just left before the burial. I couldn't watch another person I loved go into the ground. After Victoria died, I had no one. Her sister Linda stopped calling. Matthew's friends were long gone. My parents had passed years before, except Tom. Tom Bradley had been my best friend since college. Solid guy, reliable. The kind of friend who shows up when you need him without having to be asked. He'd stuck around through Matthew's death, through the divorce, through everything. Most people drift away from grief. It makes them uncomfortable. Tom never did. He called me every morning at 6:30, just to check in. "You still with me, Stan?" he'd ask. "Still here," I'd say. "Good, let's keep it that way." That was Tom. Simple, steady. The only thing tethering me to the world. I kept Matthew's room exactly as he'd left it. His clothes still hung in the closet. His books lined the shelves. His bed made the way he'd made it the morning he died. I couldn't change it. Changing it meant accepting he was never coming back. And I couldn't accept that. I kept his phone number in my contacts. Matthew Harper. I paid the bill every month even though the line had been disconnected in March 2007. $30 a month to keep his name on my screen. To see it there when I scrolled through my contacts late at night, when the house was too quiet and the loneliness was too loud. People told me I needed therapy, told me I needed to let go. I didn't listen. I learned to live around the emptiness. That's all you can do when you lose a child. You don't get over it. You don't move past it. You just learn to walk carefully around the hole they leave behind. You learn to function, go to work, pay bills. Pretend you're fine when cashiers ask how your day is going, but you're never fine. Every birthday that passes without them is torture. Every Christmas, every milestone they'll never reach. I watched Matthew's friends graduate college, get married, have children of their own. My son stayed 19 forever, frozen in time. A boy who never got to become a man. I accepted it. What choice did I have? Dead is final. Until August 7th, 2024, when his number lit up my phone at 1:58 in the morning. After the call ended, I didn't sleep. I sat on my bed until dawn broke through my bedroom window, staring at my phone like it might ring again if I watched it hard enough. At 4 a.m., I did something I knew was probably crazy. I called the phone company. The customer service line was 24 hours. A tired-sounding woman answered. "Thank you for calling. How can I help you?" "I need to check on a phone number," I said. I received calls from it, but it's supposed to be disconnected. I gave her Matthew's number. She put me on hold. 5 minutes. 10. When she came back, her voice had changed. Cautious. "Sir, according to our system, that number has been inactive since March 2007. There's no activity on it at all. No calls in or out." "That's impossible," I said. "I received a call from that number last night. 8 minutes and 17 seconds. It's right here in my call log." Another hold. This time 15 minutes. A different voice came on. Male. Professional. A supervisor. "Mr. Harper, I've reviewed the account personally. The number you're asking about has been deactivated for over 17 years. Our system shows absolutely no recent activity." He paused. "Sir, sometimes grief can cause us to see things that aren't there. Perhaps you should speak with someone. We have resources." I hung up. I didn't need a therapist. I needed answers. At 6:30, Tom called. Right on schedule. "You still with me, Stan?" "Tom," I said. "Something happened last night." I told him everything. The call, the voice, the 8 minutes and 17 seconds of conversation with my dead son. Long silence on the other end. Then, "Stan, are you sure it wasn't a dream?" "It wasn't a dream," I said. "I have the call log. I have proof." "Okay," he said carefully. "Okay, I'm coming over." "Don't," I said. "I'm fine." "I don't need a babysitter, Tom. I need my son to call again." Another silence. "What if he doesn't?" "He will," I said. And I believed it. I had to believe it. Tom said he'd come over after work. I told him not to. I didn't need a babysitter. I needed my son to call me back. 3 days later, at 3:47 in the morning, he did. August 11th, 3:47 a.m. The sound cut through the silence of my bedroom like a knife. I jolted awake. For a split second, I didn't know where I was. Then I saw the phone screen glowing on my nightstand, and everything came rushing back. Matthew Harper. I grabbed it before the second ring finished. "Matthew, Dad." His voice was worse than the first call. Ragged, desperate, like he'd been running or crying or both. "Dad, I found something. I found an address." My heart hammered against my ribs. I fumbled for the lamp, knocked over a glass of water on the nightstand. Didn't care. Grabbed the pen and paper I'd kept there for the last 3 days, waiting for this exact moment. "Tell me," I said. My hand was already shaking. "Where are you?" "The 3156 Cedar Lane." He spoke slowly, like he was reading it off something. "Apartment 12. Eugene, Oregon." "Eugene, 2 hours south of Portland. 2 hours away from me." I wrote it down. My handwriting looked like a child's, the letters shaky and uneven. But I got it. I had it. "I'm coming," I said. "I'm leaving right now. Don't move. Don't go anywhere. Do you hear me? Dad, His voice broke. "Something's really wrong. I went outside today and people looked right through me. A woman walked into me. Actually into me like I wasn't solid." He was crying now. I could hear it. "I think I'm dead. I think I'm a ghost or something. I don't understand what's happening. You're not a ghost." I said, though I had no idea if that was true. "Ghosts can't use phones. You're calling me. You're real. You're somewhere real." and I'm going to find you. Please hurry, he whispered. I'm so scared. I know, I'm scared too. But I'm coming. I promise. 2 hours. Can you wait 2 hours? I'll try. Matthew, the line went dead. I didn't bother calling back this time. I knew it wouldn't work. The pattern was clear now. He called me. I couldn't reach him. Some kind of one-way connection that didn't make any sense. But nothing about this made sense. I was out of bed before I realized I was moving. Threw on jeans and a shirt. Grabbed my wallet and keys. Didn't brush my teeth. Didn't make coffee. Didn't do any of the normal morning things a person does. My son was in Eugene, alive, scared, asking for me. Nothing else mattered. I was on I-5 South by 4:15 a.m. The highway was empty at that hour. Just me and the occasional semi-truck hauling goods through the darkness. My headlights cut through the pre-dawn black, illuminating the white lines of the road ahead, and nothing else. Oregon in August is dry, but the mornings are still cool. I had the window cracked. The air rushing past smelled like pine and asphalt. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles ached. 2 hours, that's what I'd told him. Portland to Eugene, straight shot down I-5 should take 2 hours. Maybe less at this time of morning with no traffic. But my mind wasn't on driving. It kept going back. Not to the phone calls. Not to the impossible fact that my dead son was somehow alive and calling me. But to the last time I saw him, October 15th, 2006. That morning. Matthew had stayed over the night before. He'd been working so much saving money for college that we didn't see him as often as we used to. But he'd come home that Friday night, eaten dinner with us, fallen asleep on the couch watching TV. I woke him up Saturday morning around 10. Hey, sleepyhead, you working tonight? He'd stretched, yawned. Yeah, closing shift. I should probably head home, shower, get ready. We'd walked to the door together. I remember thinking he looked tired, thinner than usual. I'd meant to say something, meant to tell him to take care of himself, to eat more, to not work so hard. Instead, I'd said, drive safe, and he'd turned back, smiled that lopsided smile. Love you, Dad. I should have said it back. Should have said, I love you too, like any normal father would. But I was distracted, thinking about work, about bills, about stupid, meaningless things that don't matter at all. So I just nodded. Drive safe. Those were the last words I said to my son. Drive safe. And 12 hours later, he was dead. I'd spent 18 years replaying that moment, wishing I could go back, wishing I'd hugged him, told him I loved him, told him he was the best thing that ever happened to me. But you don't get do-overs. You don't get second chances. Except somehow impossibly, maybe I was getting one now. The sun rose over the Cascade Mountains around 6 a.m. Beautiful sunrise. Pink and gold spreading across the sky, turning the clouds into something that looked like a painting. Oregon has good sunrises. I'd forgotten that. Hadn't really looked at one in years. I passed Salem around 6:30. The exit for Salem Hospital was coming up. For a moment, just a brief, insane moment, I considered pulling off, going to the hospital, the place where I'd identified Matthew's body, where everything had ended. But I kept driving. My son wasn't in a morgue in Salem. He was in an apartment in Eugene, alive, waiting for me. I had to keep believing that, had to keep moving forward. The GPS said I'd arrive in Eugene at 8:15 a.m., 2 hours from Portland like I'd thought. But something went wrong around Coburg, just north of Eugene. Road construction, detour. The GPS kept recalculating, sending me down side roads I didn't know, through neighborhoods I'd never seen. I got lost. Turned around. Found my way back to I-5 only to take the wrong exit into Eugene. By the time I finally pulled up to Cedar Lane, it was 12:35 p.m. 7 hours. Not 2. 7 hours of driving, of being lost, of the sun rising and climbing and beating down on my windshield. 7 hours of my son waiting for me, thinking I wasn't coming. I parked across the street from 3156 and just sat there for a minute. The building in front of me made my stomach drop. It was old. 4 stories red brick, probably built in the 70s. But that wasn't the problem. The problem was the condition. Boarded windows on the first floor. Graffiti on the walls. A chain-link fence around the perimeter with holes cut through it. And hanging on that fence, flapping slightly in the August breeze, was a faded orange sign. Condemned, no trespassing, scheduled for demolition. I stared at that sign for a long time. This couldn't be right. This building had been abandoned. Empty. Dead for who knows how long. How could my son be here? I double-checked the address I'd written down. 3156 Cedar Lane. That's what he'd said. That's what I'd written. And according to the numbers on the building, this was it. 12:35 p.m. I pulled up to 3156 Cedar Lane. The building in front of me made my heart sink. Boarded windows, chain-link fence, and a faded orange sign, condemned, scheduled for demolition. This couldn't be right, but it had to be. I stood before apartment 12 on the 3rd floor of 3156 Cedar Lane. My son was behind that door, or something pretending to be him. The address had led me to an abandoned building wrapped in decay. The chain-link fence had been easy enough to climb my 58-year-old joints, protesting but obeying. The side door hung crooked on one hinge, the padlock long since pried away by vandals or scavengers. I slipped through the gap and into darkness. The first floor reeked of mold and rot. Water damage had turned the drywall to pulp. Graffiti covered every surface. Broken beer bottles crunched under my shoes. Somewhere above, pigeons cooed in the rafters. The building had been condemned for a reason. Every instinct screamed at me to turn around, to go back to my car, to call Tom, and admit I was losing my mind. But Matthew had given me this address. My dead son had called me twice and told me he was here. I kept walking. The stairwell was worse. Each step groaned under my weight. I gripped the rusted railing, testing each tread before committing. On the 2nd floor, I found more of the same. Collapsed ceilings, stripped wiring dangling like entrails. The floor was littered with debris, needles, abandoned sleeping bags. This was a place where people came to disappear. The 3rd floor should have been identical. Instead, as I reached the top of the stairs, I noticed something strange. The hallway was cleaner. Not pristine, but noticeably different. Less debris. The walls still bore water stains, but someone had swept the floor. I walked slowly down the corridor, my breath shallow, my heart hammering. Apartments. 1 through 11 were the same as below. Doors kicked in or missing entirely. Empty rooms full of trash. But apartment 12 was different. The door was closed. Intact. The number 12 was brass polished enough to catch the dim light filtering through a grimy window at the end of the hall. I stood there for a full minute, my hand hovering over the doorknob. This was insane. This entire thing was insane. I had buried my son 18 years ago. I had touched his cold hand in the morgue. Victoria had collapsed at the funeral. I had visited his grave every Sunday for nearly 2 decades. Dead people did not make phone calls. Dead people did not have apartments. But what if? What if he had somehow survived? What if there had been a mistake? What if he had amnesia, had been living under another name, and only now remembered who he was? I turned the knob. The door opened. The apartment beyond should not have existed. Not here. Not in this building. Not in any version of reality that made sense. It was perfect. The living room was small but tidy. A brown couch sat against one wall, facing a flat-screen television. A coffee table held a neat stack of magazines. The carpet showed vacuum tracks. The air smelled faintly of dish soap and coffee, not mildew or decay. There was no dust, no grime, no sign that this space existed inside a condemned building scheduled for demolition. I stepped inside, my legs unsteady. The door clicked shut behind me. On the far wall above the couch hung a series of framed photographs. I crossed the room slowly, my vision blurring with tears. The first photo was familiar. It was from Matthew's high school graduation. He wore a blue gown and a crooked smile. Victoria and I stood on either side of him, beaming. I had a copy of this same photo in my living room in Portland, but the next photo was not familiar. It showed Matthew at maybe 22 or 23, standing in front of a river. He wore a flannel shirt and jeans. His hair was longer than I remembered. His face had matured. He looked happy. I had never seen this photo before. It should not exist. Matthew had died at 19. The third photo was worse. Matthew at maybe 30. He sat at a table in what looked like a diner holding a cup of coffee. He was smiling at whoever held the camera. The lines around his eyes were deeper. He looked like a man, not a boy. The fourth photo made my knees buckle. Matthew stood in front of this building. 3156 Cedar Lane. The same brick facade. The same boarded windows. He looked about 35 years old. He wore a dark jacket. His expression was serious, almost sad. I fumbled for my phone and took pictures of the photographs on the wall. My hands shook so badly I had to brace my elbows against my ribs. Each photo was another impossibility. Each one showed my son older than 19. Each one showed a life that could not have happened. I moved to the kitchen. The sink was clean. A dish rack held a single plate, a single fork, a single mug. The refrigerator hummed quietly. I opened it. Milk, orange juice, a package of deli turkey, bread, butter, all fresh, all recently purchased. On the counter sat a coffee maker. The pot was half full. I touched the glass. It was warm. Not hot, but warm. Someone had made coffee within the past hour. Maybe 2. My breath came in short, sharp gasps. Someone lived here. Someone was eating here. Someone had decorated the walls with photos of my family. Someone who looked exactly like my son would look at 37 years old. The tiled floor was spotless. A pair of work boots sat by the back door. Size 11. Matthew had worn size 11. I turned toward the bedroom. The door was ajar. Beyond it, I could see the edge of a bed with a navy blue comforter, a dresser, a closet with the door half open. I needed to see. I needed to know. I had come this far. I had climbed through a condemned building, had stood in a perfectly preserved apartment that defied all logic, had stared at photographs that showed my dead son living a life he never got to have. Whoever lived here would have answers. Or whoever lived here was playing the cruelest trick imaginable. I walked toward the bedroom, my footsteps silent on the tile, then muffled by the carpet in the living room. My hand reached for the bedroom door. I pushed it open, and I found the truth. The bedroom held the answers I had been searching for. The room was simple. A double bed with a navy comforter neatly made. A nightstand with a lamp and a charging cable. A dresser with a mirror above it. On the mirror, taped at eye level, was a piece of lined paper torn from a spiral notebook. The handwriting made my chest tighten. It was Matthew's handwriting. The same slanted M. The same way he looped his lowercase g. I had seen his handwriting on birthday cards, on grocery lists, stuck to the refrigerator with magnets on notes left for me before school. This was his hand, but the message was impossible. Dad, if you're reading this, then you found me. I'm sorry. I don't know how to explain what's happening. I woke up 3 weeks ago in this apartment with no memory of how I got here. My wallet says I'm Connor Hayes, 37 years old, but I remember being Matthew. I remember being your son. I remember dying. I felt the impact. I felt the glass. I felt everything go dark. But somehow I'm here, and I don't know who I am anymore. If you find this, please call the number on the business card in the nightstand. Dr. Harrison? She might have answers. I'm so sorry, Dad. I'm so confused. Connor Hayes, or Matthew, I don't know. My hands shook as I pulled the note off the mirror. I read it 3 times. Each time the words refused to make sense. He remembered dying. He felt the impact. I turned to the nightstand and pulled open the drawer. A wallet sat on top of a stack of papers. I opened it with trembling fingers. Oregon driver's license. Connor Hayes. Date of birth, April 10th, 1987. Address 3156, Cedar Lane, Apartment 12. Eugene, Oregon. The photo showed a man in his mid-30s with dark hair and a serious expression. The face was older, more weathered, but the eyes were the same. The small mole near the left eyebrow was the same. The slight crook in the nose from the time he broke it playing baseball was the same. This was Matthew, 18 years older, living under a different name. I dropped the wallet and grabbed the stack of papers beneath it. Medical records, thick official stamped with the Salem Hospital logo. Patient name John Doe, later identified as Connor Hayes. Admission date, October 16, 2006. Time 1:30 a.m. My vision blurred. I blinked hard and kept reading. Injuries consistent with motor vehicle collision. Severe head trauma. Multiple rib fractures. Lacerations to face and hands. Patient found unconscious at intersection of Commercial Street and Center Street, Salem, Oregon. No identification. Transported by ambulance. Initial diagnosis, traumatic brain injury, retrograde amnesia. The same night. The same hospital. The same intersection where Matthew had died. I flipped through the pages. Discharge summary. 3 weeks in ICU. Memory loss extensive. Patient unable to recall name, family, or personal history. Temporary identification assigned John Doe. Social worker involved. Attempts to locate family unsuccessful. Further down, patient regained partial motor function. Speech therapy initiated. Memory did not return. Patient expressed confusion and distress. Psychiatric evaluation recommended. And then, months later, patient discharged to transitional housing. Identification established through fingerprint match with hospital employee database. Name confirmed as Connor Hayes. Employment history located. Patient accepted identity despite lack of memory. I found a business card paper-clipped to the final page. Dr. Emily Harrison, Neurology, Salem Hospital. A phone number was handwritten on the back. I checked my watch. 4:15 p.m. I pulled out my phone and dialed. The phone rang 4 times. I was about to hang up when a woman's voice answered. Dr. Harrison? My name is Stanley Harper, I said. My voice cracked. My son died 18 years ago in a car accident in Salem. But I just found medical records that suggest there was another patient that night, a John Doe. I think there might have been a mistake. There was a long silence. Mr. Harper, she said slowly. I remember that night. I was a resident. We had 2 patients brought in from the same intersection within 20 minutes of each other, both with similar injuries. One was pronounced dead on arrival. The other survived but had severe amnesia. What was the name of the patient who died? I don't recall offhand, but the survivor John Doe, later identified as Connor Hayes, had no memory of the accident. He couldn't tell us who he was. We ran his fingerprints through the system and eventually got a match, but he never remembered his life before the accident. Doctor, are you suggesting that the hospital might have misidentified which patient died? Another long pause. Mr. Harper, that would be highly irregular. We have protocols. But if you're telling me you have reason to believe your son might still be alive, I think we need to meet in person. Can you come to Salem Hospital tomorrow morning, 9 a.m.? Room 312, Neurology Wing. Bring any documentation you have. I'll be there. Mr. Harper, I need to be clear. Even if there was a mistake, even if Connor Hayes is your son, he has been living as Connor Hayes for 18 years. He may not remember being Matthew. Memory is complicated. I understand. I'll see you tomorrow. I hung up. My hands were still shaking. I sat on the edge of the bed in the silent apartment, surrounded by evidence of a life that should not exist. Tomorrow I would have answers, but tonight I needed to see him. The medical records showed where he worked. Willamette Valley Manufacturing, night shift, 11 p.m. I had 6 hours. 6 hours until I could see my son's face one more time. I spent the next 6 hours in that apartment reading his journal, waiting for darkness to fall. The journal sat on a small bookshelf beside the bed. Black cover, spiral-bound, the kind you could buy at any drugstore. The first entry was dated July 15, 2024, less than a month ago. I had the dream again, the one where I'm driving and the headlights come out of nowhere. I wake up before the impact, but I can feel it. Glass, metal, pain. Why do I keep dreaming about dying? July 20th. Went to work. Greg asked if I was okay. Said I looked tired. I didn't tell him I barely sleep anymore. I don't know who I am. The mirror shows Connor Hayes. My wallet says Connor Hayes. But when I close my eyes, I hear a different name. Matthew. July 25th. I found an old phone in a storage unit downtown. The manager said it belonged to someone who never came back for their stuff. The phone's been dead for years, but I charged it. There's one contact saved. Dad. A Portland number. I stared at it for an hour. Should I call? What would I even say? August 6th. Tomorrow I'll call that number. I need to know. Even if I'm losing my mind, I need to know. August 7th. The day he had called me at 1:58 in the morning. The day my world had shattered and reformed into something I could no longer recognize. I closed the journal and sat in the silence. How had he found Matthew's phone? How had it ended up in a storage unit? Why had it taken 18 years for him to find it? The questions piled up like debris in a flood, but I had no answers. At 10:45, I left the apartment and drove to Willamette Valley Manufacturing. The factory sat on the eastern edge of Eugene, surrounded by chain-link fencing and gravel lots. Security lights cast harsh white circles across the parking area. The building itself was low and sprawling, all corrugated metal and loading docks. A sign near the entrance read, "Second shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m." I parked near the back of the lot, far enough away that I could watch without being noticed. My hands gripped the steering wheel. My breath came shallow and fast. In a few minutes, I would see him. Not in photographs, not in dreams, in person. At 10:52, a silver Honda pulled into the lot. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out. He moved under the lights, and my chest seized. It was Matthew's face. 20 years older, but unmistakably his. The same straight nose. The same dark eyes set just a fraction too close together. The small scar on his chin from the bicycle accident when he was 7 years old. I had been the one to take him to the emergency room. 3 stitches. He had cried the whole way home. Connor walked toward the factory entrance with his hands in his pockets. His gait was the same. The slight favor of his left leg from the time he sprained his ankle playing soccer. The way he ran his hand through his hair when he was nervous. Matthew used to do that before tests, before presentations, before asking a girl to prom. This man was Matthew, older, wearing a different name. But my son. He disappeared through the factory doors. I sat in my car and broke. The sobs came hard and uncontrollable. I pressed my forehead against the steering wheel and wept for the son I had buried, for the 18 years I had spent visiting a grave, for the impossibility of what I had just witnessed. My son was alive. He was 37 years old, and he was alive. I waited. The hours crawled past. I watched other workers arrive. Shift change at 11. Trucks backing up to loading bays. Forklifts moving between the warehouse and the docks. Normal work. Normal people. A normal night for everyone except me. At 2:30 in the morning, the side door opened. Workers filed out, heading for their cars. Most of them walked in groups, talking, laughing, tired but content. Connor came out alone. He stood near the fence that bordered the parking lot, looking up at the sky. The stars were sharp and clear. No moon, just darkness and distant light. I opened my car door. The sound echoed across the empty lot. I walked toward him. Each step felt impossible. My legs barely held me. My heart slammed against my ribs. At 20 feet, he turned. At 15 feet, he saw me. At 6 meters, our eyes met for the first time in 18 years. For 3 seconds, we just stared at each other. Then he spoke. "Can I help you, sir?" His voice, Matthew's voice. Deeper, rougher, but still his. He tilted his head, studying me. "You look like you've seen a ghost." The irony nearly killed me. The moment our eyes met, I knew. This was my son. Or it was the cruelest joke the universe had ever played on me. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Connor tilted his head, his brow furrowing. "Sir, are you okay?" I tried to speak. My throat closed. My vision blurred. I blinked hard and forced air into my lungs. "You remind me of someone I used to know." I finally managed. He studied my face. "You look familiar too." "Have we met before?" I shook my head. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. "I don't think so." "I'm John Williams." The lie tasted bitter. But I didn't know what else to say. I couldn't just blurt out the truth. "Not yet. Gee, I'm Connor Hayes." He extended his hand. I stared at it for a second too long before shaking it. His grip was firm. His palm was warm. Not cold, like the hand I had touched in the morgue 18 years ago. "I know this sounds strange," Connor said, "but I feel like I know you. Like I've seen you in my dreams." My breath caught. "Your dreams," he nodded slowly. "I was in a car accident 18 years ago. I don't remember much about my life before that. But I have these dreams about a different life. A life I don't think I ever lived." "What kind of dreams?" "There's a man. Older. Maybe in his late 50s. He's always sad. Like he lost something he can never get back. He looks like a father." I couldn't breathe. "What does he look like?" Connor met my eyes. "Like you. Exactly like you." The silence stretched between us. The factory hummed behind him. A truck rumbled past on the access road. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked, but all I could hear was the roar of blood in my ears. I turned to walk away. I had to. If I stayed, I would fall apart. "Wait," Connor called. "The person you lost. What was their name?" I stopped, my back to him, my hands clenched into fists. "Matthew." I heard his sharp intake of breath. "That's impossible," he whispered. "How do you know that name?" I turned back. He was staring at me with wide eyes. "What do you mean?" I asked. He pulled his phone from his pocket and opened the Notes app. He turned the screen toward me. The note was titled August 5th. Below it, written over and over, filling the entire screen, were 2 words. "I am Matthew. I am Matthew. I am Matthew." Dozens of times. Hundreds, maybe. As if he had been trying to convince himself, or trying to remember. My knees nearly gave out. "I started writing it a week ago," Connor said. His voice shook. "I don't know why. I just woke up one night and that name was in my head. Matthew, like it was mine. But my wallet says Connor Hayes. My license says Connor Hayes. Everyone I know calls me Connor. So I wrote it down, trying to make sense of it. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the DNA kit I had bought at a drugstore in Eugene before coming here. I held it up so he could see it. "I think you're my son," I said. "I think you're Matthew." He stared at the kit, then at me. "That's insane." "I know. And if I'm your son, then I've been living under the wrong name for 18 years. I've lost 18 years of my life." "I know. How is that even possible?" I told him about the phone calls, about the apartment, about the photographs on the wall showing him at ages he should never have reached, about the note written in his handwriting, but signed with a stranger's name, about the medical records from Salem Hospital showing 2 patients from the same accident on the same night. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was silent for a long time. "If this is true," he finally said, "then everything I know about myself is a lie." "We'll figure it out together," I said. "Please, let me take a sample. 36 hours. That's all it takes. If the DNA doesn't match, I'll leave you alone. But if it does..." I couldn't finish the sentence. Connor looked down at the DNA kit, then back up at me. "Okay." I opened the kit with shaking hands. The cheek swab felt impossibly small. I stepped closer. He opened his mouth. I brushed the swab against the inside of his cheek. 10 seconds. That was all it took. 10 seconds to collect the cells that would tell me if my son was alive. I sealed the sample in the tube and put it back in the kit. 36 hours for results. "What happens if it's positive?" he asked. "I don't know." "What happens if it's negative?" "I don't know that either." He gave me his real phone number. I gave him mine. We stood there in the parking lot under the Oregon night sky, 2 strangers connected by an impossible hope. "I don't remember anything about you," Connor said quietly. "Even if the DNA says I'm Matthew, I don't know if I can be him. I've been Connor Hayes for 18 years. That's the only person I know how to be." "I understand. Do you..." I thought about Victoria, about the funeral, about the grave I had visited every Sunday, about the room I had kept exactly as Matthew had left it, about the 18 years I had spent mourning a son who might have been alive the whole time. "No," I admitted. "But I'm trying." He nodded. "I have to finish my shift. I'll call you when I have the results." He turned and walked back toward the factory. At the door, he paused and looked back at me. Our eyes met one more time. Then he went inside. I sat in my car and drove back to the apartment. His apartment. I climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor. I unlocked the door with the spare key I had found in the kitchen drawer. I lay down on his couch, and I waited for the call that would change everything. One more time, 36 hours. I spent them in Connor's apartment, pacing, staring at my phone, unable to sleep or eat or think about anything, except that small plastic tube with his DNA inside it. Every minute felt like an hour. Every hour felt like a day. August 14th, 11:40 in the morning, my phone rang. "Mr. Harper, this is Dr. Emily Harrison." My hand shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. "Yes, the results are in. I've reviewed them twice to be sure. It's a perfect match. Connor Hayes is your biological son." I collapsed onto the couch. The room spun. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't speak. "Mr. Harper, are you there?" "I'm here," I whispered. "I know this must be overwhelming. We should schedule a follow-up appointment to discuss next steps, but I wanted you to have the results immediately. Mr. Harper, your son is alive." I thanked her. I don't remember what I said. I hung up and dialed Connor's number with trembling fingers. He answered on the 2nd ring. "Hello." "It's positive," I said. My voice broke. "You're Matthew. You're my son." The line went silent. Then I heard him crying. Deep, shaking sobs. I started crying too. We stayed on the phone for 10 minutes, neither of us able to speak, just listening to each other weep. That afternoon, we met at Riverside Diner, the same place where Connor had sat in one of the photographs on his apartment wall. We chose a booth by the window. He ordered coffee. So did I. Neither of us drank it. For 4 hours I told him stories. About the day he was born, about his first steps, about the time he broke his arm falling out of a tree and insisted he was fine until the bones started poking through the skin, about his 7th birthday party when he wanted a dinosaur cake and Victoria made one from scratch with green frosting and plastic T-Rexes. He listened. Sometimes his eyes would light up as if a memory was surfacing. Mostly he just looked sad. "I wish I remembered," he said. "I wish I could give you back the son you lost. You are the son I lost. But I'm not him. Not really. I'm someone else now. Then I'll get to know who you are now." The days that followed blurred together in the best way. We called each other every morning, every evening. Connor told me about his shifts at the factory. I told him about the accounting firm where I used to work before I retired. We talked about nothing and everything. A few days later, he called me at midnight. "I had a dream about a house, blue with a red door. There was a swing set in the backyard." "No, that was our house," I said. "You used to spend hours on that swing." The following week, he drove to Portland. I was waiting on the porch of 847 Hawthorne Boulevard when his silver Honda pulled up. He got out slowly, staring at the house. "It's really blue," he said. "You picked the color. You were 8 years old. You said blue was the happiest color." I showed him inside. He walked through the rooms like he was in a museum. Everything was exactly as it had been 18 years ago. The furniture, the photographs on the walls, Matthew's room upstairs, still decorated with posters of basketball players and a shelf full of trophies. He stood in the doorway staring. "It's like a museum. I couldn't change it." "I understand." By early September, I had cleared out the spare bedroom. I bought new sheets, a new comforter, a desk, and a chair. I wanted him to have his own space when he stayed over, somewhere that wasn't frozen in time. Soon after, I introduced him to Tom Bradley. Tom came over for dinner on a Friday night. He shook Connor's hand. He asked polite questions. He smiled at the right times. But after Connor left, Tom pulled me aside. "Stanley, he doesn't look at you the way Matthew used to." "What do you mean?" "Matthew looked at you like you hung the moon. This guy looks at you like you're a nice stranger." "He has amnesia, Tom. He doesn't remember." "I know. I'm just saying. Be careful." I told him to leave. We hadn't spoken since. One evening in mid-September, Connor was helping me wash dishes. I handed him a plate. He handed me a glass. We moved in comfortable silence. Then, without thinking, he said, "Oh, thanks, Dad." We both froze. He stared at me. I stared back. Then I pulled him into a hug and didn't let go for a long time. By the end of September, Connor was staying at my house 3 or 4 nights a week. I gave him a spare key. He kept a change of clothes in the spare bedroom. We fell into routines. Saturday morning pancakes. Evening walks around the neighborhood. Late-night conversations about everything and nothing. When he called me Dad, something inside me that had been shattered for 18 years started to heal. I had my son back. Not the way I had imagined. Not the boy I had lost. But I had him. October arrived with cold rain and gray skies. Connor stayed at my house more than his apartment. We were building something, a relationship, a family. I should have listened to Tom. I should have noticed the small details that didn't fit. But hope is a powerful drug, and I was addicted. October brought the first cracks. Small things, tiny inconsistencies I told myself didn't matter. But cracks grow. And on the 20th of October, the foundation shattered completely. October 5th, Connor was helping me go through old photo albums. We sat on the couch in the living room, the albums spread across the coffee table. Rain drummed against the windows. Connor turned the pages, slowly studying each photograph, like it might unlock something in his mind. He pointed to a picture of a young boy on a bicycle grinning at the camera. I remember this blue bike. I loved that thing. I looked at the photo. It was red. He blinked. What? The bike. It was red. You picked it out yourself for your 10th birthday. He stared at the photo. In the picture, the bicycle was clearly red. Bright cherry red with white handlebars. Huh, he said. I could have sworn it was blue. Memory's funny, I said. But something cold settled in my chest. A few days later, we ordered pizza. Connor requested pineapple. I stared at him. You want pineapple on your pizza? Yeah, why? Matthew hated pineapple pizza. You used to say it was a crime against nature. Connor laughed. People change, I guess. 18 years of amnesia will do that. I forced a smile. But I remembered. Victoria had ordered pineapple pizza once by mistake. Matthew had refused to eat a single slice. He'd made a sandwich instead. On the 10th, I noticed a scar on Connor's left wrist. We were washing dishes together. He reached for a plate and his sleeve pulled back. A thin white line, maybe 2 inches long, ran across the inside of his wrist. How'd you get that? I asked. He glanced down. Old injury, I guess. I don't remember. That night, I went through every photograph I had of Matthew. Arms bare in summer photos. Sleeves rolled up in family pictures. No scar. Not on either wrist. 2 days later, Connor mentioned summer camp. I remember the lake, he said. And the canoes. We used to race them. What lake? Swizat camp. Summer camp. I must have been, 12, 13. Matthew never went to summer camp. He frowned. Are you sure? Yes. You always said you wanted to, but Victoria was worried. You stayed home every summer. I'm sure I remember it. Maybe you're thinking of something else. He didn't look convinced. Neither was I. On the 15th, I made meatloaf. Matthew's favorite. Victoria's recipe. Ground beef breadcrumbs, tomato sauce, a secret blend of spices she'd perfected over 20 years. I'd made it 100 times. Connor took a bite. Chewed slowly. It's a little different than I remember. This is exactly how Victoria made it. Same recipe. Maybe my taste buds changed. Maybe. But he left half of it on his plate. By the 18th, I was lying awake at night cataloging the discrepancies. The blue bike that was red. The pineapple pizza. The scar. The summer camp that never happened. The meatloaf that tasted wrong. That same day, Connor was humming while making coffee. A song I didn't recognize. Matthew loved this one, he said when he caught me listening. I'd never heard Matthew hum that song, not once. Later, Connor mentioned his favorite teacher. Mr. Anderson. He taught history. Best teacher I ever had. Matthew's favorite teacher had been Ms. Thompson. She taught English. He'd written her a thank you note when he graduated. I started to say something, then stopped. What was I going to say? That his memories were wrong, that the DNA test was wrong, that my son wasn't my son. Memory isn't reliable. 18 years of amnesia. Things get confused. Details blur. It's normal. But the list kept growing. And every time I added something new to it, the cold in my chest spread a little further. These were small things. Insignificant. DNA doesn't lie. Dr. Harrison had said it was a perfect match. Science doesn't make mistakes like that. But what if it did? On the 20th, we had a normal evening. Dinner, television. Connor went to his room at 10. I stayed up making tea in the kitchen. The house was quiet except for the rain and the soft whistle of the kettle. At 10:30, I walked down the hallway with my tea. Connor's door was slightly ajar. I heard his voice. Low. Urgent. He was on the phone. I stopped. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but something in his tone made me freeze. I can't keep lying to him, Connor said. Every day it gets worse. 1 sentence, 9 words. How can I tell him I'm not Matthew? That was all it took to destroy everything. I stood frozen in the hallway. Connor's voice continued from behind the half-open door. "I know," he said. "I know. But this is harder than I thought it would be." A pause. He was listening to whoever was on the other end of the call. He's so happy," Connor said. His voice cracked. "He looks at me like I'm everything to him, like I'm the only thing he has left in the world." My heart pounded so hard I thought my ribs might crack. The teacup trembled in my hand. "I can't keep lying to him," Connor said. "Every day it gets worse. Every time he tells me a story about Matthew, every time he looks at me with that hope in his eyes, I feel like I'm drowning." Another pause. "No, I haven't told him yet. How can I tell him I'm not Matthew? That I've been lying this whole time, that the DNA test was..." The teacup slipped from my fingers. It shattered on the hardwood floor. The sound was deafening in the quiet house. Connor's voice stopped mid-sentence. The door opened. He stood there, phone still pressed to his ear. Our eyes met. He knew. In that instant, he knew I had heard everything. His face went pale. "I'll call you back," he whispered into the phone. He lowered it slowly. "Stanley, how much did you hear?" "You're not Matthew." It wasn't a question. It was a statement. A fact. The only fact I had left. Stanley let me explain. "You're not my son." He took a step toward me. I took a step back. Broken ceramic crunched under my shoe. "The DNA test was wrong," he said. His voice shook. "Or I made it wrong." "What does that mean?" Tears streamed down his face. "I wanted it to be true. I wanted it so badly. I wanted to have a father. Someone who looked at me the way you do. I've been alone for 18 years, Stanley. No family. No one who cared if I lived or died. And then I found those photos in the apartment. And I realized I looked like him. Like your son. And I thought, maybe, who are you?" "My real name is Liam. Liam Carter. I'm nobody. Just some guy who woke up with no memory and spent 18 years trying to figure out who I was. And when I saw those pictures, when I heard your voice on that phone call, I thought maybe I could be someone. Maybe I could be your son." The world tilted. I grabbed the wall to steady myself. "Get out!" "Stanley, get out." He reached toward me. I jerked away. "Don't touch me. Don't you ever touch me again." "Please, just let me explain." "There's nothing to explain. You lied. You lied about everything. The phone calls, the apartment, the DNA test. All of it was a lie." "Not all of it," he whispered. "The way I felt when you looked at me, when you called me son. That wasn't a lie. That was real." "Get out of my house." My voice broke. I was screaming and crying and shaking all at once. He stood there for one more second, his face crumpled with grief. Then he turned and walked out. I heard his footsteps on the stairs. The front door opened, closed. The house was silent. I collapsed onto the kitchen floor, surrounded by shattered ceramic and shattered hope. I sat there for hours. I don't know how long. Time stopped meaning anything. At 3 a.m, I stood up. I walked to my car. I drove. I didn't know where I was going until I arrived. Hillcrest Cemetery. The gate was locked, but I climbed the fence the way I had climbed the fence at 3156 Cedar Lane. I walked through the darkness with only my phone's flashlight to guide me, but I didn't need it. I knew this path by heart. 18 years of Sundays. Section D. Plot 217. The oak tree, and there waiting for me in the darkness was the only truth I had ever known. The gravestone. Matthew Harper. April 12th, 1987 to October 15th, 2006. Beloved son, my real son, still dead, still gone, still 6 feet underground. I knelt before Matthew's grave and talked to him the way I had every Sunday for 18 years. "I'm sorry," I whispered. The grass was cold and wet beneath my knees. The oak tree creaked in the wind. "I'm so sorry. I betrayed you. I let someone else pretend to be you. I wanted him to be you so badly that I ignored everything. The wrong details, the lies, all of it." The gravestone didn't answer. It never did. Everyone was right. Victoria. Tom. Even you, probably. I need to move on. But I can't. I've been stuck here for 18 years, at this grave, at the moment I lost you. While the rest of the world kept turning, I stayed frozen. I thought about Victoria, how she had moved on, remarried, had Emma, built a new life. She had learned how to carry Matthew's memory without letting it crush her. She knew how to let go, I said. I don't. The dark thought had been growing since I left 847 Hawthorne Boulevard, since I climbed the cemetery fence, since I knelt here in the darkness. Maybe I should have been the one who died. Maybe the wrong Harper had survived that night 18 years ago. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the pill bottle. I'd had it for years, sleeping pills. Prescribed after Victoria left when the nights became unbearable. I'd never used them, just kept them, just in case. I held the bottle up to the moonlight. The pills rattled inside. Enough. More than enough. "I could stop right here," I whispered. "With you, we could be together again." I opened the bottle. The cap came off with a soft click. I poured a handful of pills into my palm. Small, white, so simple. All I had to do was swallow. A flashlight beam cut through the darkness. "Stanley!" I looked up. A figure was running across the cemetery. Tom Bradley. "Stan, don't." He was sprinting now, stumbling over headstones. "Whatever you're thinking, don't do it." He reached me and knocked the bottle from my hand. Pills scattered across Matthew's grave like snow. The bottle bounced off the headstone and rolled into the grass. Tom grabbed my shoulders. "I can't lose you too. Do you hear me? I can't lose you too." I collapsed into him. The sobs came hard and broken. He held me while I cried, his arms steady around me, his voice murmuring words I couldn't quite hear. "How did you know?" I finally managed. "Connor called me about an hour ago. He was terrified. He said you threw him out. He said he was worried about what you might do. He told me you'd be here." "He's not Matthew," I whispered. "The DNA test was wrong. Or he faked it somehow." "I know. You know," Connor told me on the phone. "He told me everything. Then why are you here? Why did you come?" Tom pulled back and looked me in the eye. "Because you're my friend. Because I've watched you die slowly for 18 years. And I'm not going to watch you finish the job." We sat on the cold ground in front of Matthew's grave. The pills glinted in the moonlight like tiny stars. Neither of us moved to pick them up. "You've been dead too, you know," Tom said quietly. "For 18 years. A ghost haunting your own life. Going through the motions but never really living. I don't know how to live without him." "I know. But Connor gave you something. 2 months of feeling alive, of having someone to care about. Even if it was based on a lie, that feeling was real." "It wasn't real. None of it was real. The feeling was real, Stan. The hope was real. And maybe that's enough to remind you that you can still feel those things, that you're not completely dead inside." The sky began to lighten. Dawn was coming. The stars faded one by one. The cemetery transformed from black to gray to pale gold. Tom stood and offered me his hand. "Let's go home. You're home in Portland. Not this grave. I don't know how to leave him. You're not leaving him. You're learning to carry him with you. There's a difference. I took his hand. He pulled me to my feet. Together we walked toward the cemetery gate. And for the first time in 18 years, I didn't look back. Tom drove me to Portland. He stayed on the couch. He didn't ask if I wanted him there. He just stayed. The days that followed blurred together. Tom made me eat when I didn't want to. He sat with me when the silence became too heavy. He didn't try to make me talk. He just stayed. On the fourth day, I finally spoke. I told him everything. The phone calls, the apartment, the photographs, the DNA test, the 2 months of believing I had my son back, the wrong details that piled up until I couldn't ignore them anymore, the overheard phone call, the confrontation. Tom listened without judgment. On the 5th day, I walked into the spare bedroom. Connor's room. The sheets were still rumpled from the last time he'd slept there. His jacket hung on the back of the chair, and on the nightstand, half hidden under a pillow, was his journal. I picked it up. The black cover was worn at the edges. I opened it to the last entry. October 19th. Tomorrow I'll tell him the truth. I have to. Even if he hates me. Even if I lose him. He deserves to know. I can't keep lying to him. Every morning when he smiles at me, every time he calls me son, I feel like I'm drowning. I wanted to be Matthew so badly. I wanted to have a father so desperately, but I can't keep stealing someone else's life. Stanley deserves better than this. He deserves the truth. Tomorrow. I'll tell him tomorrow. I closed the journal. My hands were shaking. Tom appeared in the doorway. What does it say? I handed it to him. He read it silently, then looked up at me. He was going to tell you, Tom said. He was trying to do the right thing. I know. What are you going to do? I didn't know. Part of me wanted to burn everything he'd left behind. Every piece of clothing, every memory, every lie. But another part, a part I didn't want to admit existed, missed him. Not Matthew. Him. Connor. Liam. Whatever his real name was. The man who had tried so hard to become what I needed. The man who had given me 2 months of hope before reality crashed down. I don't know, I said. And that was the truth. If you're still watching after my most painful moment, please comment, I'm still here, so I know you're walking this journey with me. And fair warning, what comes next will reveal truths that might surprise you. Some details may be fictionalized to protect those involved. If you don't want to continue, you can stop right here. October 29th. I needed to understand what had happened with that DNA test. I called Dr. Harrison. Her voice was cautious when she answered. Mr. Harper, how are you? I need to know how the test could have been wrong. Can you help me? Come to my office. 10 o'clock. We'll figure this out. I drove to Salem Hospital for what felt like the 100th time. Room 312, Neurology Wing. Dr. Harrison had files spread across her desk. Sample storage protocols. Chain of custody procedures. Test result printouts. There are 2 possibilities, she said. So either Connor accessed the archived samples from 2006 and swapped them, or there was a genuine administrative error. Perhaps Connor is a partial relative, a cousin, a nephew. I don't have siblings, I said. No nieces or nephews, no cousins I know of. She nodded slowly. Then we test again. Properly this time. Private lab, supervised collection. No room for error. We went to a facility in downtown Salem. Sterile rooms, controlled procedures. I provided a fresh sample. For Connor's DNA, I used hair from the brush in the spare bedroom at 847 Hawthorne. The brush he'd left behind. 2 days later on Halloween, the results came back. Negative. No genetic match whatsoever. I'd expected it, but seeing it in black and white still felt like a punch to the chest. Final proof that everything had been a lie. "I did some research, Doctor," Harrison said when she called. "On Connor Hayes, on Liam Carter." "What did you find?" "He was in the foster system. His parents, Sarah and Michael Carter, died in a car accident in 1996. He was 9 years old. It happened on his birthday. They were driving home from a celebration." I closed my eyes. 9 years old. The same age Matthew had been when he broke his arm falling from that tree. "He moved through 7 different foster families over 9 years, Dr. Harrison continued, to aged out of the system at 18 in 2005. After that, it's harder to trace. Minimum wage jobs, no permanent address. And then 1 year later, the accident in Salem. He lost everything. His memory, his identity, his past. He was alone," I whispered. "Completely. No family. No one looking for him. For 18 years, he didn't know who he was." I understood then. Liam and I were both orphans, both desperately alone, both clinging to something that wasn't real because reality was too painful. On November 5th, a letter arrived. The envelope was plain. No return address. Just my name and address written in careful block letters. I almost threw it away. Almost added it to the pile of junk mail on the kitchen counter. But something made me stop. Made me sit down at the table with the unopened letter in my hands. I opened it. 3 pages. Handwritten. The same slanted writing I'd seen on the note taped to the mirror in Connor's apartment. "Dear Stanley," it began. "I don't expect you to read this. I don't expect you to forgive me. But I need to tell you the truth. All of it. My name is Liam Carter. I was born on April 10th, 1987 in Portland, Oregon. My parents were Sarah and Michael Carter. They were good people. Loving. They died on my 9th birthday. A drunk driver hit them on the way home from my birthday dinner. I survived. They didn't. I spent 9 years in foster care, 7 different families. Some were kind, some weren't. I aged out at 18, worked minimum wage jobs, slept in my car more nights than I can count. I had no one, no family, no connections, no one who cared if I lived or died. On October 15th, 2006, I was driving to the coast. It was the 10-year anniversary of my parents' death. I wanted to see the ocean. I don't remember the accident. I don't remember anything for weeks after. When I woke up in the hospital, I didn't know my own name. I didn't know who I was. I was a ghost. A blank slate. John Doe. For 18 years, I lived with that emptiness. I worked. I existed. But I didn't know who I was. And then this summer, I started having dreams. Vivid dreams about a boy named Matthew, about a family, about belonging. I found a key to a storage unit. I don't know how I had it. Maybe it had been in my pocket since the accident. Maybe I'd kept it all these years without knowing why. Inside the unit was a box, and inside the box was an old flip phone. Dead. But I charged it. And there was one saved contact. Dad, Stanley Harper. A Portland number. I called it. You answered, and when I heard your voice, something inside me broke open. I researched you. I found articles about Matthew's death. I saw his picture. He looked like me. Or I looked like him. And I became obsessed with the idea that maybe I was him. That maybe the accident had stolen my memory, but I was still your son. I wanted it to be true so badly. I called you. I gave you that address. I showed you the apartment. I let you believe. And when the DNA test came back positive, I thought maybe God or the universe or whatever was giving us both what we needed. A father, a son, a family. For 2 months I had that. For 2 months I felt like I belonged somewhere, like someone cared about me, like I was more than just some lost guy with no past and no future. I know that's selfish. I know I hurt you. But those 2 months were the only time in 18 years that I felt like I had a home. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm leaving Oregon. You won't see me again. But I wanted you to know the truth. I wanted you to understand why I did what I did. I was drowning Stanley, and you were the only life raft I could see. Thank you for those 2 months. Thank you for looking at me like I mattered. Thank you for making me feel like I was someone's son. And I'm sorry for everything. Liam Carter. I read the letter 3 times. The first time I was angry. The second time I cried. The third time I understood. This man had given me 2 months of hope. Yes, it was built on a lie. But the feelings weren't fake. He had tried. In his broken, desperate way, he had tried to become what I needed. The same way I had tried to see Matthew in him. That evening, Tom came over. He found me sitting in the dark, the letter still in my hands. "What are you going to do?" he asked. I looked at my best friend. "I'm going to find him." Tom's eyes widened. "Stan, are you sure?" I nodded. "He said he's leaving Oregon. I need to talk to him before he goes. I need to see him one last time." Finding him wasn't easy. He'd quit his job. His apartment was locked tight. On November 16th, Tom and I drove to Eugene. The building at 3156 Cedar Lane was boarded up completely. Yellow tape across the entrance. A demolition notice on the fence. Scheduled for November 23rd. We went to Willamette Valley Manufacturing. The receptionist checked her computer. Connor Hayes. He resigned 2 weeks ago, didn't give a reason, just turned in his badge and left. We found Greg Thompson in the break room. He remembered me from that night in September when I'd introduced him to Connor. "Yeah, I remember Connor," Greg said. "Good guy, quiet. He told me he was leaving Oregon, mentioned Seattle, I think. Said he was selling his car and taking the bus." Tom and I looked at each other. "Greyhound Station," Tom said. We drove straight there. The next morning, November 17th, we arrived at 8 a.m. The station smelled like coffee and exhaust fumes. A tired clerk sat behind bulletproof glass. I showed her Connor's photo. She squinted at it, then nodded. "Yeah, guy's been sleeping here the past few nights. Bought a ticket to Seattle. Bus leaves at 2 this afternoon. 6 hours. We had 6 hours." Tom and I bought coffee and sat in the plastic chairs bolted to the floor. We didn't talk much. What was there to say? We watched people come and go. Families saying goodbye. Students heading back to college. Elderly couples holding hands. At 1:45, he walked in. Liam Carter. He looked thinner than I remembered. His jacket was worn at the elbows. His backpack hung off one shoulder, barely full. He looked exhausted, beaten, like a man who'd been running for a long time and was finally too tired to keep going. He bought a candy bar from the vending machine and sat in the corner. He held his ticket in both hands, staring at it like it was a lifeline. His head was down. He didn't see me. I stood and walked over to him. I stopped directly in front of him. He looked up. The expression on his face went from confusion to recognition, to shock, to fear, to shame in the space of 3 seconds. "Stanley," he whispered. "Sit down," I said. "Please." He didn't move. I sat down next to him anyway. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. "Did you get my letter?" he finally asked. His voice was hoarse. "I got it. I'm sorry." I needed to say that to your face. I needed you to know. I know. The speaker crackled overhead. Attention passengers. The 2 p.m. bus to Seattle departing from Gate 4 is now boarding. Liam stood abruptly. He grabbed his backpack. I should go. You don't have to. He froze. What? You don't have to get on that bus. Stanley, I can't. I read your letter, I said. All 3 pages. I know who you are. Liam Carter. I know your parents died when you were 9. I know you spent 9 years in foster care. I know you've been alone for most of your life. His eyes filled with tears. That doesn't excuse the lie, I continued. But it explains it. I hurt you anyway. Yes, you did. But I remember the past 2 months. You called me Dad. We made breakfast together on Saturday mornings. You helped me fix the fence in the backyard. You listened when I told stories about Matthew. You actually cared. And you made me feel like I was a father again. Even if it was based on a lie, that feeling was real. The speaker crackled again. Final call for passengers boarding the 2 p.m. bus to Seattle, Gate 4. I'm not asking you to be my son, I said quickly. You're not Matthew. You'll never be him. I understand that now. But maybe you can be Liam. My Liam. What does that mean? I don't know. We'll figure it out together. Not father and son. Just 2 people who understand loss. 2 people who've been stuck in the past for too long. Maybe we can help each other move forward. Liam shook his head. Tears streamed down his face. I don't deserve forgiveness. Maybe not. But I'm forgiving you anyway. Because holding on to anger is exhausting. And I'm tired. I've been tired for 18 years. Attention. The bus to Seattle is now departing. This is the final boarding call. Liam looked at the gate. The bus was visible through the window engine running, people filing aboard. He looked back at me. Things can't go back to how they were, he said. No, they can't. We start over. This time we're honest with each other. No lies, no pretending. Just 2 people trying to figure out how to stop being alone. I don't know if I can do this. Neither do I, but we'll try. The bus pulled away from the gate. We both watched it go. Liam didn't move. He just stood there holding his backpack, watching his escape route disappear down the highway. Finally, he turned to me. Okay, let's try. Tom appeared beside us. He put a hand on my shoulder. You sure about this, Stan? I looked at Liam. Thin, exhausted, ashamed, but still here. Still trying. I'm sure, I said. Life's too short to be alone. We've both been alone long enough. We walked out of that bus station together. Not as father and son, not as strangers, but as something in between. Something undefined. Something fragile, but real. And for the first time since that 1:58 a.m. phone call all those weeks ago, I felt like I could breathe again. The next 4 months weren't easy, but they were real. On November 20th, Liam moved into the spare bedroom. Not as my son, not as Connor Hayes pretending to be Matthew, as Liam Carter. A man I was learning to know. We established ground rules. Honesty above all else. No pretending. Separate lives with some overlap. Liam found a job at a warehouse in Northeast Portland. $8 an hour loading trucks. It wasn't much, but it was his. He didn't want to depend on me. I respected that. We both started therapy. Liam went twice a week. I continued the sessions I'd been avoiding for years. We talked about grief, about loss, about the lies we tell ourselves to survive. December came. We learned to use our real names without hesitation. Liam called me Stan. Never Dad. Never again. I called him Liam. Never son. Never Matthew. The boundaries were clear, but within those boundaries, something genuine began to grow. On December 15th, Liam asked if he could see Matthew's room. I stood at the bottom of the stairs, my hand on the banister. For 18 years, that room had been a shrine, untouched, frozen, a museum of a life that ended too soon. "Are you sure?" I asked. "I need to see it," Liam said. "Not to pretend I remember it, just to understand, to know who he was." I opened the door. Liam stood at the threshold looking at the basketball posters, the trophies, the books still stacked on the desk. He didn't go inside. He just looked. "I'm not him," he said quietly, "but I wish I'd known him." Me too. On Christmas, Tom joined us for dinner. Turkey, mashed potatoes, store-bought pie because none of us could bake. It was small, unpretentious. 3 people who cared about each other sitting around a table, grateful not to be alone. We didn't pretend to be a family. We were just friends. And that was enough. In January, I asked Liam if he wanted to visit Matthew's grave with me. We drove to Hillcrest Cemetery on a cold Sunday morning. The oak tree was bare. The grass was brown. Liam carried a bouquet of white roses. "Matthew," I said, kneeling before the headstone. "This is Liam, a friend. Someone who understands what it's like to lose everything." Liam placed the roses at the base of the stone. He sat down beside me. He didn't speak. He didn't pretend he remembered Matthew or felt a connection he didn't have. He just sat there, respectful, quiet. It was enough. On January 15th, we finally closed the case of Kevin Grant. Through Dr. Harrison's help, we traced the hospital records back to that night in October 2006. 2 patients, same intersection, similar injuries. One identified as Matthew Harper, one identified as John Doe, but somewhere in the chaos of that night, the identities had been switched. The boy I'd buried wasn't Matthew. It was Kevin Grant, 19 years old. An orphan who'd aged out of foster care 2 years earlier. No family. No one looking for him. He'd died alone and been buried under someone else's name. Liam and I arranged for Kevin's body to be exhumed and reburied properly. We commissioned a new headstone. Kevin Grant, 1987-2006. Finally home. We stood together at the new grave on a gray afternoon. 2 men who understood what it meant to be lost. To have no one remember your name. "Everyone deserves to be remembered by their real name," I said. Liam nodded. Tears streamed down both our faces. We weren't crying for Kevin alone. We were crying for ourselves. For all the people who get lost in the cracks. For all the identities that slip away. In February, Emma Harper reached out. She was 12 years old, Victoria's daughter from her second marriage. She'd heard rumors that Matthew was alive. A classmate's parent had seen something on social media. The story had spread, twisted, exaggerated. I met Emma at a coffee shop downtown. The first time I'd seen her since Victoria's funeral in 2018. She looked so much like her mother. Same dark eyes. Same careful smile. I explained the truth. Matthew was still gone. But I'd made a friend. Someone who'd been lost like me. Someone who was learning to find his way. "Mom used to talk about Matthew," Emma said. "She'd tell me stories sometimes, before bed. She missed him a lot. I miss her too." The following week, Emma met Liam. I didn't introduce him as my son. I didn't pretend he was Matthew. I said, "This is my friend Liam." Liam shook her hand. He asked her about school, about her hobbies. He was kind, patient. He treated her like a person, not a complication. New connections were forming. Stanley, Liam, Tom, Emma. Not a traditional family, but a family we chose. A family built on honesty instead of blood. On Valentine's Day, Liam and I had dinner together. Not romantic, just 2 friends sharing a meal. I made spaghetti. He brought garlic bread from the store. "Thank you," he said as we were cleaning up. "For what?" "For giving me a second chance. For seeing me. Not Matthew, not Connor, me, Liam. I dried a plate and set it in the cabinet. Thank you for teaching me that family isn't just blood. It's the people who choose to stay. He smiled. It was the first real smile I'd seen from him in months. That wasn't the relationship I'd imagined when I answered that phone call at 1:58 in the morning. It wasn't father and son. It wasn't Matthew back from the dead. But it was real. And the truth I'd learned was better than any lie, even a beautiful one. February gave way to March. Winter turned to spring. And slowly, painfully, honestly, we were building something new. Not a replacement for what I'd lost, but something worth having, something worth fighting for, something that looked a lot like hope. Spring had arrived, and with it, something I hadn't felt in 19 years' peace. Not the peace of forgetting, but the peace of finally letting go. March 2025. Spring came to Oregon with rain and blooming cherry blossoms. The morning was cool and bright. Liam and I drove to Hillcrest Cemetery in a comfortable silence, the kind that comes when two people understand each other without words. The Sunday ritual had changed. I still went to the cemetery, but differently now. Sometimes Liam came with me. Sometimes I went alone. Sometimes I skipped a week and no longer felt guilty. Today we went together. We stood before Matthew's grave. The oak tree above it was budding with new leaves. Nearby fresh flowers marked another grave. Life continuing even in a place of endings. 18 years, I said quietly. 19 this October. Liam stayed a respectful distance away, giving me space while letting me know I wasn't alone. For a long time I was stuck here, Matthew. At this grave. I thought that if I came every Sunday, kept your room untouched, and refused to move forward, then you wouldn't really be gone. But you were gone, and I was the one who refused to accept it. I knelt and touched the gravestone. The granite felt cool and solid beneath my palm. I thought that phone call was you. For 2 months I believed a lie because I needed it to be true. I was wrong, but I don't regret believing it. That lie led me here to this moment, to learning how to carry you with me, instead of being buried beside you. I love you, Matthew. I always will. But now I'm going to live. Really live. The way you would have wanted. Not just existing. Liam spoke softly. He'd be proud of you. I looked up. You think so? I know so. It takes courage to let go. We walked back to the car together. My steps felt lighter. For the first time in 19 years, I left that grave without crying. The grief was still there, but it no longer drowned me. It had become part of my story, not the whole story. At home, the house had changed. It was no longer a shrine. Matthew's room still existed, but the door stayed open now. Sunlight filled the space I had kept dark for years. I had been sorting through his belongings, not erasing him, but honoring him differently. I kept what mattered and released what didn't. Report cards, a basketball jersey, guitar picks he never learned to use. Liam helped me with the boxes. He picked up a crayon drawing of a stick figure family under a yellow sun. What's this? He asked. First grade, I said, smiling. A Mother's Day card for Victoria. Those were supposed to be flowers. Tell me more, he said. So I did. Story after story. Remembering without drowning. Celebrating Matthew's life instead of only mourning his death. That afternoon, Tom came over. We sat on the porch with coffee watching spring unfold. Kids on bicycles, dogs tugging leashes, cherry blossoms drifting like pink snow. Before Tom arrived, Liam and I had been talking about ordinary things. Work, the Blazers' awful season, what to plant in the garden, normal life. You look different, Tom said. I feel different. Different good. I looked at Liam, then at Tom, then at the street alive with motion, at the house that was no longer a tomb, at a future that felt possible again. Yeah, I said. Better. Tom nodded. I wasn't sure this would work. Thought maybe you were making a mistake. But you saved each other. We did, Liam said. We sat there as the Portland sun warmed the porch. Three men shaped by loss who learned that family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's choice. Sometimes it's who stays. I had spent 19 years waiting for a miracle, waiting for my son to return. The miracle came differently than I expected. Not resurrection, but redemption. Not Matthew's return, but my renewal. Not getting back what I lost, but finding something new worth keeping. And that was enough. This is the end of my story, but it's also a beginning. Because every ending is just another way to start over. If someone had told me a year ago that I'd be here sitting on my porch with a man who isn't my son, but feels like family, I wouldn't have believed them. I buried my son 19 years ago. For 19 years, I mourned him. Then a stranger called and said he was lost. He wasn't my son, but he needed me. And I needed him. We found each other in the wreckage of grief. Over these months, I've learned things about grief I wish I'd known earlier. That it doesn't follow a timeline, that it doesn't make you weak, that it can coexist with joy. I've learned that being Matthew's father didn't end when he died. It evolved. The love I had for him didn't disappear. It transformed. It taught me how to open my heart again. Not to replace Matthew, but to honor him by living the way he would have wanted me to live. Fully, honestly, with love. I've learned that fatherhood isn't just biology. It's showing up. It's listening. It's being there when someone needs you, even when that someone isn't the person you expected. On Tuesday evenings, Liam and I volunteer. I go to a grief support group at the community center. Liam works with a foster care organization mentoring teenagers who've aged out of the system. Last week, I met a man named Robert. He'd lost his daughter in a car accident 6 months ago. She was 16. He sat in that circle with the same hollow eyes I'd seen in my own mirror for years. "How do you stop feeling like you're drowning?" he asked me. I thought about that question for a long time. "You don't stop feeling it," I finally said. "But you learn to swim. You let people throw you lifelines. You remember that grief is love with nowhere to go. So you find new places to put that love. Not to replace who you lost, but to honor them," Robert cried. So did I. But this time the tears felt different. Not drowning, just remembering. Across town, Liam sat with a 16-year-old named Marcus. The kid had been in 7 foster homes in 9 years, just like Liam had been. Marcus asked him the question every lost kid asks: does it get better? Liam told me later what he'd said. It gets different, and different can be good. You won't forget the pain, but you'll learn to carry it. And one day, you'll help someone else carry theirs. That's when you know you've survived. We do this work because we understand. We've both been lost. We've both been found. And now we give back what we were given. A chance. A connection. Hope. Last week, I found Matthew's wallet in the garage. I'd packed it away in 2006. Inside was his graduation photo. On the back in his handwriting, "To the best dad in the world. Lucky to have you. Love, Matthew." I showed it to Liam. He smiled. He was right. He was lucky. On the mantle now, there are 2 photos. The old one, Matthew at 19, grinning at the camera. The new one, Liam and me. Tom took it last month. We're both really smiling. Late at night, I still wonder. Was it Matthew, his soul reaching out from somewhere beyond? Or was it just coincidence, just Liam finding that phone in a storage unit? I'll never know. But I choose to believe both. That Matthew knew I was stuck. That he sent someone to help me let go. Not to replace him, but to remind me that life is for living. So I live, and I love. And every Sunday, I still visit that grave. But I don't stay long anymore. Because I have somewhere to go. Someone waiting. Not Matthew. Liam. My Liam. My chosen family. My second chance. If you've listened this far, you know my family story, every painful, beautiful moment of it. Now let me speak to you directly, not as a character, but as a man who lived through something that nearly destroyed him. I wasted 19 years of my life. 19 years mourning a son I'd already lost, clinging so tightly to his memory that I forgot how to live. I let grief become my identity, my purpose, my entire world. And when someone offered me hope, even false hope, I grabbed it so desperately that I couldn't see the truth. Don't be like me. Don't wait until you're 67 to realize that loving someone doesn't mean you stop living when they're gone. Don't let the family betrayal you've experienced, whether death, divorce, or deception, become the lens through which you see everything. Don't become so hungry for what you've lost that you'll believe anything just to feel whole again. I'm telling you this as a father who failed. I failed Matthew by not being there the night he needed me most. I failed Victoria by letting our marriage die with our son. I failed myself by choosing grief over healing, isolation over connection, death over life. But here's what God taught me through this family story. Sometimes the people who hurt us most are the ones who save us. Liam Carter lied to me. He manipulated my grief and made me believe in a miracle that wasn't real. That family betrayal should have destroyed whatever remained of my heart. Instead, it cracked me open wide enough to finally let the light back in. Fatherhood isn't about DNA or blood, or whose eyes look like who's in photographs. It's about showing up. It's about choosing someone day after day, even when they've lied to you. Even when loving them means forgiving what seems unforgivable. Matthew was my son because I loved him, not because biology said so. And Liam became my son the same way, through choice, through forgiveness, through the daily decision to build something new from the ruins of what we'd both lost. Don't be like me in the beginning, but if you find yourself where I was, drowning in grief, desperate for answers, then be like I am now. Choose forgiveness. Choose life. Choose the family you can build, rather than the one you can't bring back. God doesn't always give us what we ask for. I begged him for 19 years to bring Matthew home. He never did. But he gave me something I didn't even know I needed: a second chance at fatherhood with a young man who needed a father just as desperately as I needed a son. If you're carrying grief that's become too heavy, put it down. Not forever, but just long enough to remember that you're still here, still breathing, still capable of love and joy. If someone has betrayed your trust, know that forgiveness doesn't mean what they did was okay. It means you're choosing not to let their actions define your future. I forgave Liam not because he deserved it, but because I deserved peace. Even after the deepest family betrayal, healing is possible. This family story taught me that it's never too late. Not at 67, not at any age. It's never too late to choose hope over bitterness, connection over isolation, forgiveness over rage. Thank you for staying until the end of my journey. Comment 1. So I know you've walked this entire path with me. Please note, while based on real emotions of loss, certain narrative elements have been dramatized for storytelling purposes. So tell me, what are you holding on to that's holding you back? Share this story with someone who needs it. Subscribe for more honest stories about family betrayal and healing. God bless you all, and remember, the end is just the beginning.